Welcome to the We're Good podcast, where we are celebrating the everyday brilliance of people working toward a more positive world. If you're looking for the good that's taking place around you, you've come to the right place. In today's episode, we're talking friendships. Best Buddies is dedicated to building friendships for people with intellectual disabilities. Today, you'll also hear how they offer a jobs program and independent living opportunities. And if you've ever had a Wegmans chocolate chip cookie, you're about to meet a young man who works in the bakery where those cookies are made, thanks to the Best Buddies program. Let's meet the folks at Best Buddies as we continue to share the good around us here on the We're Good podcast. Welcome to the We're Good podcast. I'm Lee Ann Necessary, your host. This podcast shines a light on people and organizations doing good things, actually great things in this region. They are rolling up their sleeves and tackling some tough issues, and we are so glad that you are joining us today. Also very happy to be joined today by Best Buddies, Virginia, D.C., Molly Whalen, State Director. Molly, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We appreciate it. There's so much to cover because Best Buddies does so much. But as you say, it has a great origin and it started right here in our region.
Yeah, absolutely. Right here at Georgetown University in 1989, one person, Anthony Kennedy Shriver, he's the youngest of Eunice Kennedy Shriver's children. And he founded Best Buddies with a couple of college friends. And the idea was to make a meaningful one-to-one connection between someone with a disability and someone without a disability.
As we said, a lot of people know Best Buddies or they've heard of it as a middle school, high school, but it's a lot more than that.
Absolutely. It began as a friendship program, and now we have several pillars. But the friendship program is really where it started with that one-to-one connection. So we go from elementary all the way to college. We also have an adult program. We like to call it Citizens. That's for anyone over the age of 18. And like I'd like to say we create the scaffolding for friendship. So we connect somebody to people, and then we tell them like, hey, you need to connect so many times a month, get together so many times, text each other so many times. For people with developmental or intellectual disabilities, navigating the social world can be hugely challenging. There's a statistic that shows that someone with an intellectual or developmental disability has a circle of connections of about 3 people, and you or I have a typical social connection circle of about 125.
Really?
So it's really socially isolating, and lots of times for people with IDD, it's caretakers, parents, family members. So to be someone outside the home really makes a difference. And that's what Best Buddies do. We're kind of a matching program for those friendships, but we're really there to help people realize how you can be friends and how you can socially connect with someone with a disability.
That's amazing. And, you know, we talk a lot on our podcast about journeys in what brought people to this organization. What brought you to Best Buddies?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been more or less from this area. And I was working in associations and nonprofits. And then I had 2 children. And both of my children, who are now 22 and 25, have autism. So I got involved in special education advocacy and navigating the disability world. And Best Buddies came and looked for me. So they were looking for a state director. And it was kind of all of my life experiences along with my professional experiences as a fundraiser and someone in development and program management kind of came together. But I really saw the difference it made to my son. So my 25-year-old son, he now has a job. He works at the NIH Clinical Center. He went through a workforce development program, and he is in the operating room and is a sterile processing technician. And so, you know, one of the things he brings to his job that's so valuable is that sense of consistency and being able to follow the same routine over and over again, which you or I, that might drive each other crazy if we had a job like that. But to Bobby, it's not rote, it's consistency, and he can handle it. And he cleans the operating carts the same way each time. And so his supervisors just love it because he's following these very detailed, you know, A through Z steps, you know, the same way each time. And he gets to do that. And, you know, he really knows that he's making a difference and that he's working in a hospital. Now, if I brought him in here, would he like talk and wax poetic about it? No. I mean, he would probably just say, I work in a hospital and that's it. But, it gives him meaning, and he's doing something good for the universe.
Seriously, he's doing something so important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're finding. And I do want to share a little bit about how that happened, how that job came about. That's one of the pillars that you all have.
Absolutely.
Is it, of course, you do want to have the one-on-one, but you have an amazing job program.
Yeah, absolutely. And when people think of Best Buddies, they just think oftentimes of friendship. Oh, it's these friendship clubs in schools.
Which there's nothing wrong with.
And it's wonderful. And that's our main pillar. That's kind of what I like to call the bread and butter, because that's where we're starting to get students to realize the difference of being meaningful friends. But we also know that people with developmental disabilities are 83% or underemployed. And that's a massive workforce that's not being tapped. And lots of times it's just they can't navigate the social pieces or navigate a resume building or navigate an interview. And so our jobs program is a supported employment program, and there's a lot of other players out there that do supported employment, and we love them all. We need more and more of them. And
as we say, we're not in competition.
We are not in competition. There's so much need there.
We're finding that with all of our guests. We're like,
there's all
corner the market.
But somebody will come into our program. We will help them build a resume. We will go through a skills assessment. We will find out do you want to work outside? Do you not want to work outside? Do you want to talk to people? Do you not want to talk to people? Are you good with details? You're not good with details. Do you want a lot of movement? You don't want a lot of movement. So all of those things that make up like how comfortable are you to spend your day, we go through, and then we help them do a resume, apply online, do the applications. And by law, our job coaches, we call them employment consultants, can go along with a person with a disability to the interview and the whole process. And I like to say sometimes we're the interpreter, so that if somebody asks a question and our person gets stuck on the wording or doesn't understand, the concept of where they're going, our employment consultant can say, hey, why don't you talk about XYZ on your resume? Or could you tell about the time that you fixed that problem where you used to work? And so we just help them navigate. And then hopefully they get the job. We come out, our employment consultants will go during the onboarding process. I don't know about you, but if you've gone through a new job anytime recently, you have to take a lot of online trainings. I find them daunting. I can only imagine somebody with an IDD has that's daunting to them. And so our employment consultants can help them with that, just kind of navigate it, help them answer. Scribe, that's when we, if we ask you a question, instead of you writing it, you tell me the answer and then I write it for you, or I type it. It might be a skill that, typing and writing might be a really hard task. So we just help them along, but it's their answers. They're being a self-advocate. And then once they're on the job, we try to make sure everything's good. We kind of check in as often as we can. We do some job coaching. Our folks kind of come in, they check with the managers. That's why we call them employment consultants, because they help the person with a disability, but they also help the environment where they're working. We also will come in and do a DEI session. So we'll tell, if you want to bring all your staff in and say, hey, we've got this new employee, they have a developmental disability. What does that mean? What is it? Our people will come in and do a presentation what developmental disabilities are, how you talk to someone, which is you kind of talk to them just as you would, but maybe, slow it down, maybe use some more basic language, give a lot of time for answer. Don't try to jump on over them. And so we'll do that. And what we often find, managers will come back after we do one of those sessions and they'll say, wow, we had so many staff that came up and said, I have a sibling with autism. I have a child with a disability. I didn't know we could hire people with disabilities. I really love this. I'd love to learn more. And so it really just kind of breaks down the barriers. And, we're not too far away from when we used to have institutions. Forest Haven here in DC was one of the last ones to close a couple decades ago. So what we're really doing at Best Buddies is opening the doors and showing that somebody with a developmental disabilities can have a friend, can have a job, can be a self-advocate and tell us what they want to do, can be independent, live a life. We have Best Buddies Living, which is our living pillar. So all of those things at Best Buddies, we just kind of help push all of those, the folks out into it and make sure that we can help that.
That's wonderful. And I love what you said about or what you've told me, is that this is not just, of course you are helping the participants.
Yes.
But what you are finding, as you said, you have people coming to you, not just job,
Yeah.
not just on the job, but also in the schools, parents.
Yeah.
So for me, this is like dual. It's just, it's overarching.
Absolutely. I've been working in supported employment. I've been with Best Buddies for over 4 years, but I've been doing supported employment with nonprofits for a while. And I kid you not, I've never had a manager come up and say, oh, I wish we had never hired that person with a disability. They always come up and go, I don't know why I waited so long. I'd love to do this more. We have an employer recognition breakfast that we do every year. And every single employer that comes and supervisor comes just waxes poetic about how amazing it is to have their person on. And we don't choose the best of people to send them. We just choose every day people with developmental disabilities, but they become so key in their own employer's world and universe. And people just love the experience of working with them. Lots of times people with developmental disabilities don't communicate at the same pace as us, don't communicate in the same way as us. Sometimes they may even use like a communication board. Sometimes they may have some halting speech or, not really kind of have the chit chat that you or I can have. And when people are at work, they tend to have to slow down a little bit to talk to someone with a developmental disability, give them time, give them space, be very particular in how they ask questions. And that makes them a little bit more patient with everybody else. It makes us all a little patient with everybody
Changes the
else.
culture.
Absolutely.
A bit. And you said that there's parents who've come to you of children that...
This is my favorite. So I, of course, as a parent of 2 kids with developmental disabilities, of course I hear from parents with kids with disabilities how great this program is. And I'm really proud of that. But I also hear from the kids' parents who don't have disabilities. And my favorite, lots of them will say, but one of my favorite was we were having to move. And one of the things that you all should know as nonprofits is I'm begging for everything. I'm not always begging for money and begging for programs, but I needed a free moving truck to move our things. So I get on the phone and I'm talking to this guy and I said, let me tell you about Best Buddies. And I started my spiel and he said, I need to stop you. And I thought, oh, he's putting me off. What's my next? Okay, I'm now on to the next moving company.
You're looking at all this.
And he said, you do not have to go any farther. I know about Best Buddies. My daughter, who's now in her 20s, did Best Buddies. And he goes, I can say this as her dad. She had no empathy in her bones at all. But she went through Best Buddies and she found empathy and she found kindness. And he said it changed the life trajectory. I'm going to get a little teary-eyed. It changed the trajectory of my daughter's life to make her realize other people. And she went on to become an occupational therapist in college. And he goes, she's now working. And he goes, what do you need? I'll move you. So, I mean, those are the stories that we hear that it's like, hey, we are intentionally making friendships that are meaningful and intentionally bringing people to work into real jobs, competitive employment jobs, and changing their lives, but we're changing the lives around people around them too.
Right. The whole system, and it's the whole group. It's the whole world, right? Because
absolutely.
Everyone's benefiting.
Well, and I think, you see this a lot. And I can tell you, when my son was diagnosed in 2002, I think we were 1 in 166 kids with autism. We're now at I don't even know, I think it's 1 in 30 or something. So it's a wave of young adults that are hitting the young adult world of employment and things. And we can't let them be, sitting alone in the basement or at home with parents. These kids and young people need to be out working. They need to be out living independently. And you get that by going through programs like ours where you're learning self-advocacy, which is our leadership pillar, or you're learning how to apply for jobs and going out there and not being scared of it. And we have to do all the things to build up. Somebody with a developmental disability oftentimes doesn't drive. So that means we have to help them figure out the navigation of the metro and the travel train. My son takes the bus, walks to the bus from home, takes the bus to the metro, and then the metro to NIH. But I realized that he was riding his bike, which I was like, well, what do you do with it when you get on the bus? And he goes, well, the bus driver showed me how to put the bike on the front of the bus. And I was like, he did?
Wow.
I mean, I don't know about you, but not all the times are the bus drivers and metro drivers the like friendliest or the easiest to like ask a question. I was like, my son with autism knew enough to ask for help. And that he goes, the bus driver got out and showed me how to do it. And now on my bus rides on the front of the bus, or my bike rides on the front of the bus. So yeah. And I mean, that might be daunting to other people and go, oh, well, how would they get there? Well, he's figured it out. And now he gets there and now he gets to work every day.
Awesome. And of course, earlier today, we joined one of your son's friends,
yes,
Peter. And so Peter has really taken part in all of these programs.
He's fantastic. So Peter has been in all of our programs. And one of my favorites to talk about is he now works at Wegmans. So he's in the bakery and he's in charge of baking the cookies. Wegmans has very famous cookies. But Peter went through a workforce program to teach bakery skills. And he really wanted to be baking or working in a kitchen. And that was when he went through our jobs program. That was really like something he didn't want to like settle for something else or settle for a job. He really wanted to be in a bakery. And we're so excited that he's working at Wegmans. Wegmans, got to give a shout out to our great employers out there who are willing to hire people with developmental disabilities and give them the support to, get through the hurdles. It's not without hurdles at a job, but lots of times it's just figuring out, this young person needs an alphabet chart, where they're parking, or a visual checklist of the steps involved, because their working memory might be slow and easier. But yeah, so Peter's really fantastic, and Peter's done so much, and he's living independently now at our Best Buddies living facility.
We're going to take just a minute here in just a moment, and we're going to listen in to a little bit of Peter's interview. So here's a little bit from Peter's excerpt from earlier today, and we appreciate him joining us. Peter, I understand you started with a Best Buddy, and then you have moved through the job development, the coaching, and actually are doing the Best Buddy living right now. Tell us, where do we start? What would you like to share about Best Buddies?
Well, Best Buddies is an independent living program, and it helps me with my skills.
And what are you doing right now? I understand you're part of the job program. So what is your job right now that you're working with?
I'm currently working at Wegmans in the cookie department.
That's wonderful. What kind of delicious cookies are you making?
There's ultimate chocolate chip, double chocolate chip, snickerdoodle, candy chip cookies, and all that.
Oh my goodness. It all sounds delicious. And you enjoy the cooking?
Yes, I do.
That's great. When did you start out with Wegmans? How long have you been with Wegmans?
Since July.
Peter, can you tell us, you have a Best Buddies job coach, right? Do you remember that it was Caroline?
Caroline Fleury.
Yeah, Caroline. And what did Caroline help you do at Wegmans?
She helped me do some online classes before I got that job.
Yeah, and help you build your resume.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then did she go with you to the interview?
Yes, she did.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of provide support about that.
What are some things that you enjoy about working at Wegmans and your Best Buddies living?
Why I like working at Wegmans is because my workers at the cookie department, Courtney and Ann, are very polite.
It's wonderful. That helps, right?
Right.
Do you take right to the cooking? Do you feel very natural doing that? I understand you've done some cooking at the Best Buddies Gala.
Yeah. And only the year before last year, there's flatbreads and hummus.
That's awesome. So you just take to the cooking. You enjoy that.
Yes,
I wish I had that. I'm not a very good cook, Peter. I'm going to be honest with you. Especially a good baker. It takes a lot to be a good baker.
Well, it takes practice.
It does.
As you said, Best Buddies. It still is it's a nonprofit, and so you have fundraisers, and you have, of course, a big event.
We have two big events a year. Peter was talking about being a Buddy sous chef. We have our Best Buddies Homecoming Gala that's always held in the fall, and it's a homecoming dance for all the Best Buddies high school and college students in the area. And then we do a full gala with chefs and Buddy sous chefs in the ballroom. And then our other big event that's coming on, and it's really one of my favorites, is the Best Buddies Friendship Walk. And they're held all over the country. Ours here in Washington, D.C. is the largest Best Buddies Friendship Walk. We have over 2,000 people on the National Mall. It'll be April 26, 2025. We always hold it pretty much in April or spring. And it's where we get everybody together. And it's, as I say, it's less exercise and more social and more fun. But it's one of the friendliest.
That might have more people signing up.
Exactly. But it's one of the friendliest events you could go to. I guarantee if you come out for a friendship walk, you will not be alone. Somebody will say hi to you. You'll be walking with friends. It's really just amazing to watch.
And we're sharing with Peter that my family, we've done it and we love it. Do you love the Best Buddies Walk?
Yes, I do.
It's great. It's sometimes a little chilly, but it's beautiful down there on the mall.
We're gonna get that sunshine.
No, it's gorgeous. It's a great event, and this is a wonderful organization.
So much fun.
We've been talking to some of our nonprofits, and we don't like to think about it, but what are some of the things that this region would miss if Best Buddies didn't exist?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to that idea that this was founded by one person with a group of friends in a college. If that hadn't happened, this whole attitude about, hey, I can be a friend with someone who's different from me in a very pivotal time, like middle school and high school. And that's kind of grown out from there. But it really, as I said, it gets back to that scaffolding. Like this, people with developmental disabilities don't have the natural tendencies sometimes to be social or to understand social. And when we make it one-to-one, it's more intimate, it's more, easy to navigate. And we give the scaffolding to make that friendship there. And if we didn't have that, we'd have a whole lot of people in this country, in this world, who just maybe not have ever met somebody with a developmental disability or never really hung out meaningfully or worked meaningfully or interacted meaningfully with someone. So we're trying to break those barriers down.
And I love it because it's alongside.
Yes.
You're not in front of, you're not behind, you're right alongside each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of our events have all of our participants. Peter and other ambassadors come on out. They speak from the stage. Our ambassadors speak in front of 2,000 people. Our DJ is a young man with autism. We really make sure that our buddies are, as you say, right by us. We're here. I'm helping, but they have the voice to be able to tell the world they want.
That's awesome. And Peter, you're an ambassador too. You just do it. You do it all.
Peter doesn't say no, right? You're a good volunteer. You always say yes.
Yes.
Well, that's because you know how much it's meant to you, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's nice to give back.
Very nice.
I have one more question for you. Would you honor us by perhaps sending your favorite recipe so that we could share it on our website? One of your cooking recipes?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that after people are listening to this podcast, they're really going to be hungry for some cookies.
Yeah.
I think so. But we really appreciate all that Best Buddies does, Molly. I know
so much.
There's so much more. I know you and I could talk forever, and I could talk to Peter. We're just, this has just been really nice to share about an organization that's doing some amazing things. As you said, it started with one person. So people should think about that, right?
Absolutely.
Whatever they've got. And also, we're going to be able to share. I know there's volunteer opportunities.
If you're a solo and you want to volunteer, if you want to be a buddy and be part of our citizen program, we have 400 in our citizen program. If you want to, do our ambassadors and just give 2 hours, you want to come out and help us put the walk on.
Right,
you can do that.
Citizen is. You were talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Our adult friendship program is called Citizen.
Okay, adult friendship.
So it's just our little nickname for anyone at 18. Yeah, as long as you're not in college or in a school program where there's a Best Buddies chapter, you can be in Citizens. And we have a vibrant one here in Washington, D.C., as I said, over 400. And then we also have one in Richmond as well.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And there's so much more. We're going to be excited about the recipe, Peter. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Anytime.
Well, I appreciate it. And Molly, thank you so much. Best wishes to your son and all of his work as well. And to all of your families. Thank you. And as I said, we have a lot more. And it's going to be on the Best Buddies website, but we also will be sharing that on our website, which is we'regood.net, because of course there is a lot to be shared and a lot more about this organization. And if you enjoyed our podcast today, we hope you will follow We're Good wherever you get your podcasts, because we want you to share all of the good that's going on that you're hearing about. Until next time, please remember to celebrate the brilliance and the good that's going on here in our region, because we're good and you're good, and we can all make a difference.